Have you ever felt confused by someone who pulls away the moment things start to feel real? One moment they are close, warm, present. The next moment they become distant, quiet, hard to read, and you sit there wondering, did I do something wrong? Did they lose interest? Are they trying to avoid me? This confusion can eat at your mind. It can make you question your value. It can make you believe that the distance you feel means the feelings are fading. But what if the opposite is true? What if that distance is not rejection at all? What if that silence is not a lack of love, but evidence that something deep is happening inside them? Stay with me until the end of this video, because what you are about to understand can completely change how you see avoidant behavior, and it may finally explain the confusing actions of someone you care about. Most people think love always looks obvious. They believe love means constant attention, constant messages, constant closeness. And they believe that when someone truly cares, they will always move closer. But human psychology is not that simple, especially when it comes to people with avoidant tendencies. The avoidant mind works differently. It is wired to protect itself, not because the person does not feel deeply, but because they often feel too deeply and do not know how to handle it. Imagine this for a moment. Imagine someone growing up learning that emotions are dangerous, that depending on others leads to disappointment, that getting too close to someone eventually brings pain. Over time, the mind creates a strategy for survival. It builds emotional walls. It learns to stay independent. It learns to control feelings instead of expressing them. This pattern becomes automatic. It becomes a reflex, and the person carrying it may not even realize they are doing it. Now something unexpected happens. They meet someone who touches something real inside them, someone who makes them feel understood, someone who slowly begins to break through the quiet defenses they have spent years building. At first it feels exciting, safe, comfortable, but then something else begins to happen. The feelings grow stronger, the connection becomes deeper, and suddenly their mind sends a warning signal, not because the connection is wrong, but because it is starting to matter. For someone with avoidant tendencies, emotional closeness can trigger an internal alarm. The closer they feel to someone, the more vulnerable they become. And vulnerability feels unfamiliar. It feels risky. It feels like stepping into a place where they might lose control of their emotions. So their mind tries to restore balance. It creates space. It pulls back. It slows down the connection. And from the outside, it looks like avoidance. It looks like distance. But inside their mind, something completely different is happening. Inside, they may be thinking about you more than you realize. Inside, they may feel emotions that surprise even them. Inside, they may be trying to understand feelings they never allowed themselves to feel before. But because their instinct is to protect themselves, they do not always move closer when love appears. Sometimes they move away first, not because they want to lose the connection, but because they are trying to understand it. This is where many people misunderstand the avoidant heart. They see distance and assume the person does not care. They see silence and assume interest is fading. But in many cases, the distance appears exactly when emotions become real, when the connection starts touching something deeper, when the relationship begins to matter more than expected. Think about it this way. When something does not matter to you, you do not feel pressure. You do not feel fear. You do not feel emotional intensity. But when something matters deeply, your mind reacts, your heart reacts. And if someone has spent years protecting themselves from emotional dependence, that reaction can feel overwhelming. So instead of rushing forward, they pause. Instead of expressing everything they feel, they hold it inside. Instead of diving deeper into the connection, they step back to process what is happening. To someone on the outside, this behavior can feel frustrating. It can feel confusing. It can even feel painful. Because love usually feels like movement toward each other. But with avoidant personalities, love sometimes begins with movement away. Not permanent distance, not rejection, but temporary space while their mind tries to make sense of feelings that suddenly feel bigger than expected. And this is the moment where perception becomes important. Because what you see on the surface is not always the full story. Silence can hide emotion, distance can hide attachment, and hesitation can hide the beginning of something real. When you start to understand this psychological pattern, something powerful happens. The confusion begins to fade. The behavior that once looked cold begins to make more sense. You begin to see that the avoidant response is often a reaction to emotional intensity, not a lack of emotional depth. But this is only the beginning of the story, because avoidant people reveal their real feelings in ways that most people completely overlook. Small actions, quiet signals, subtle patterns that show something important is happening beneath the surface. And once you learn to recognize these hidden signs, you will start to see the difference between someone who is truly avoiding you and someone who is quietly falling in love while fighting their own fears. What many people never realize is that the avoidant mind is not empty of emotion. It is full of it, but the way those emotions move inside them is very different from what most people expect. Inside their world, closeness creates a strange and silent tension. One side of them wants to stay connected. It feels warmth when you are near. It feels calm when you understand them. It even feels relief when someone accepts them without pressure. But another side of them begins to whisper warnings. It tells them not to depend too much. It reminds them that emotional safety can disappear without notice. It tells them to stay strong by staying independent. This quiet inner struggle becomes stronger when attachment begins to grow. The heart moves forward, but the mind tries to slow things down. They begin to question their own feelings. They wonder if they are moving too fast. They wonder if letting someone into their private world will eventually bring disappointment. Because for someone who learned early that closeness can lead to pain, the idea of emotional reliance feels unfamiliar, even when the connection is genuine. Many avoidant individuals develop their habits during moments in life when emotional support was limited or inconsistent. When someone grows up learning that their feelings must be handled alone, their brain adapts. It trains itself to rely on personal strength. It becomes skilled at staying calm without asking for comfort. It becomes comfortable managing life independently. Over time, this self-reliance becomes a powerful identity. It feels safe, it feels controlled, it feels predictable. But the moment real affection appears, that balance begins to shift. Suddenly, another person enters a space that once belonged only to them. Their thoughts start including someone else. Their decisions start considering someone else. Their emotions begin reacting to someone else's presence. This change can feel overwhelming, not because the connection is wrong, but because it introduces vulnerability into a system that was designed to avoid it. Inside their mind, questions start forming. They may not say these questions out loud, but they exist beneath the surface. What if I get too attached? What if I lose myself in this relationship? What if this person leaves one day? These thoughts do not mean the feelings are weak. In many cases, they appear because the feelings are becoming stronger than expected. So the avoidant system activates its protective habit. It creates emotional breathing room. It steps away for a while. It tries to calm the intensity inside their chest. This distance is not always planned. Often it happens automatically, like a reflex learned over many years. Their brain believes space will restore emotional control. While this is happening, the outside world often misunderstands the situation. A partner may believe something has gone wrong. They may start searching for mistakes they made. They may assume the connection has started fading, but the avoidant person is usually experiencing something completely different. They are processing emotions that feel unfamiliar and powerful at the same time. Deep inside, they may still care strongly. They may replay conversations in their mind. They may remember moments that made them smile. They may think about reaching out again, yet at the same time, they are trying to manage the intensity of the bond that is forming. It is like standing at the edge of deep water. Part of them wants to jump in. Another part wants to stay where the ground feels steady. This internal push and pull creates behavior that can appear inconsistent. One day they may feel open and present. Another day they may become quiet and distant. It is not because their feelings change overnight. It is because their mind is trying to balance closeness with self-protection. Psychologists often describe this pattern as a defense system built around independence. Independence itself is not negative. It can be a powerful strength. It can help someone remain calm under pressure and capable during difficult moments. But when emotional attachment enters the picture, that same strength can become a barrier. The person wants connection, yet their habits push them towards solitude whenever emotions become intense. This is why understanding the avoidant mindset requires patience and emotional awareness. What appears like rejection on the surface can actually be someone regulating feelings they are not used to experiencing. Their silence may hide confusion. Their distance may hide reflection. Their pause may hide a quiet effort to understand their own heart. There is also another truth that often remains unseen. When avoidant individuals begin caring about someone deeply, the relationship challenges their entire belief system about closeness. It invites them into unfamiliar territory where emotions cannot always be controlled. This can feel both exciting and frightening at the same time, because love changes priorities. It introduces the possibility of shared vulnerability. It encourages emotional openness that may have been avoided for years. For someone used to standing alone emotionally, this shift can feel like learning a completely new language. But something remarkable begins happening during this process. Even while their instincts encourage distance, another force begins growing stronger: the desire to remain connected, the curiosity about the other person, the quiet appreciation of moments spent together. These feelings slowly challenge the old belief that closeness must always lead to disappointment. At first, the progress may look small: a message after a period of silence, a simple check-in, a moment of honesty that surprises even them. These actions may seem minor, yet for someone who built their life around emotional independence, they represent important steps. The mind that once avoided vulnerability completely begins allowing small openings. Little by little, the walls that once felt necessary start becoming less rigid. The person may not move quickly. They may still need space at times, but the connection continues existing beneath the surface. And this is where the story becomes even more interesting. Because when affection is real, the avoidant heart often reveals its truth through subtle behavior that many people overlook entirely. These quiet signals become the real language of their feelings, showing whether the bond truly matters to them. Now, something important begins to appear. When genuine feelings exist, the behavior of an avoidant person starts showing quiet patterns that are easy to miss. These patterns are not loud. They are not dramatic. They rarely come with big emotional speeches. Instead, they appear through small choices and subtle actions that reveal where their attention truly stays. One of the strongest signals is presence. An avoidant person rarely remains close to someone who does not matter to them. If a connection has no meaning, they usually remove themselves completely and continue their life without looking back. They protect their time and emotional energy carefully. So when someone with this personality continues to stay connected, even in a quiet way, it already says something powerful. They may disappear for a short time, but they return again. The communication may slow down, but it never fully stops. They may keep their thoughts private, yet they still maintain contact. These small returns often go unnoticed because people expect clear emotional declarations. But in the world of someone who values independence deeply, simply continuing to show up already requires emotional effort. Another sign appears through attention. Avoidant individuals often notice details without openly pointing them out. They remember things you said weeks earlier. They keep track of small changes in your mood. They observe your habits, your routines, the things that bring you comfort. They may not express these observations with dramatic words, but their memory holds these details quietly. This happens because their mind processes emotions internally rather than externally. Instead of talking about everything they feel, they observe, they listen, they store information about the person who has become important to them. Their awareness becomes sharper because their heart has started paying attention. You may also notice moments when their guard lowers slightly. It may happen unexpectedly during a simple conversation. They might share something personal from their past. They might admit a worry or uncertainty they normally keep hidden. These moments may seem brief, but they are meaningful. For someone who usually protects their inner world carefully, allowing another person to see a small piece of vulnerability takes courage. Sometimes their care appears through practical actions rather than emotional language. They might help you solve a problem. They might support you in a difficult moment without making a big announcement about it. They might offer advice or assistance quietly. These actions may seem ordinary, yet they reveal a deeper layer of attachment. They are investing their energy in your well-being. Another pattern becomes visible in how they react when the connection feels threatened. Even though they prefer independence, the thought of losing someone meaningful can create discomfort they struggle to hide. They may not express jealousy loudly or dramatically. Instead, their behavior may shift subtly. Their attention may become stronger. Their presence may increase again. This reaction often reveals that the relationship holds more value than they are ready to admit openly. There are also moments when curiosity starts guiding their actions. They ask questions about your experiences. They want to understand how you see the world. They listen closely when you describe your thoughts. This curiosity is important because it shows emotional investment. The more someone matters to them, the more they want to understand that person deeply. Another powerful signal appears through consistency over time. Avoidant personalities may move slowly, but real attachment creates a steady pattern of connection. Even when life becomes busy or complicated, they continue finding small ways to stay present in your life. Their approach may not be intense or overwhelming, but it carries persistence. This steady presence reveals something meaningful about their emotional state. If their interest were shallow, maintaining the connection would feel unnecessary. They would simply continue focusing on their own path. But when affection becomes real, their actions begin forming a quiet rhythm of contact and care. You may also notice how their tone softens when speaking with you compared to others. The way they respond may become calmer and more attentive. Their words may carry a subtle warmth that appears naturally without effort. This difference can be difficult to explain, yet it becomes visible through repeated interactions. Another interesting sign is how they gradually allow more access to their personal space. For someone who values privacy strongly, inviting another person into their routine or environment is a meaningful step. It could be sharing more about their daily life, introducing parts of their world, or allowing deeper conversations to happen. These moments show trust growing slowly. Trust is extremely important for avoidant individuals because it challenges the protective barriers they built earlier in life. Every small opening represents a decision to lower those defenses slightly. This does not happen quickly. It develops step by step as they learn that emotional closeness does not always lead to pain. What makes these signals powerful is that they happen naturally. They are not forced performances designed to impress someone. They are authentic reactions coming from a heart that is learning to stay connected despite long-standing habits of emotional distance. And when these quiet behaviors continue appearing over time, they begin forming a clear picture. The person who once seemed hard to read is actually revealing their feelings through actions rather than declarations. The language of their affection may be subtle, but it is real. When you learn to notice these patterns, something changes in the way you interpret their behavior. What once looked confusing begins making sense. The quiet effort behind their actions becomes visible. The connection begins to feel less like uncertainty and more like a gradual unfolding of trust and care. And in that slow unfolding, an important truth begins to appear. Sometimes the strongest emotions are not expressed through loud promises or dramatic gestures. Sometimes they grow quietly, protected behind cautious behavior, waiting for the moment when fear finally loses its control. As time passes, something even more meaningful begins unfolding inside a person who once kept their emotions guarded. The connection that once felt overwhelming slowly becomes familiar. What once triggered caution begins to feel less threatening. This transformation does not happen in dramatic moments. It grows quietly through repeated experiences of safety, respect, and emotional steadiness. At first, their instinct was distance. Their mind believed space would protect them from vulnerability, but as the relationship continues, new evidence starts reshaping their beliefs. They notice that conversations do not always lead to conflict. They realize that opening up does not always lead to rejection. They begin to see that closeness can exist without destroying their sense of independence. These realizations may sound simple, but for someone who spent years protecting their emotional boundaries, they are powerful discoveries. Every positive experience with the person they care about becomes a small piece of proof. Proof that connection can exist without chaos. Proof that emotional closeness does not automatically bring loss. With this growing sense of safety, their reactions start changing in subtle ways. The long pauses between conversations begin shortening. Their willingness to communicate becomes more natural. The tension that once appeared during deeper discussions slowly fades. They may still value personal space, but that space no longer feels like a wall separating two people. Instead, it becomes something healthier, a balance between closeness and individuality. They start learning that relationships do not require them to lose themselves. They can remain independent while still allowing someone to share their life. This realization is deeply empowering for someone who once believed emotional attachment would take away their freedom. It helps them see that caring for another person does not weaken them. Instead, it adds new depth to their life experience. You may begin noticing that they express appreciation more openly. At first, it may appear through simple words, a message checking how you are doing, a comment acknowledging something you did. These gestures may seem small, yet they represent growing comfort with emotional expression. Another sign appears through how they handle challenges within the relationship. Earlier, tension might have caused them to withdraw immediately. Now they may try to remain present. They may attempt to understand the situation instead of escaping it. This change shows that the connection has become valuable enough for them to face discomfort rather than avoid it. This stage reveals an important shift inside their mindset. The relationship is no longer something that threatens their stability. It becomes something worth protecting. The same instincts that once created distance now begin supporting closeness. Their actions start showing more reliability. When they say they will do something, they follow through. When you share something meaningful, they respond with attention. They may still communicate in a calm and measured way, but the consistency behind their behavior becomes stronger. Consistency builds trust, and trust changes everything in relationships where emotional caution once dominated. It allows both people to relax. It removes the constant question of where things stand. It replaces uncertainty with a steady sense of connection. Another remarkable change begins happening inside their emotional world. Feelings that once created fear begin creating motivation. Instead of worrying about becoming attached, they start valuing the bond that has formed. They begin seeing the relationship not as a risk, but as something meaningful that enriches their life. This shift often surprises them as much as it surprises the person they care about, because for a long time, they believed emotional closeness would bring discomfort. Yet here they are experiencing something different. They feel supported instead of restricted. They feel understood instead of pressured. When someone experiences this transformation, their heart begins embracing vulnerability in ways they never expected. They may still move carefully, but their intentions become clearer. Their efforts to maintain the connection grow stronger. They become more present during conversations, more attentive to shared experiences, and more open to emotional depth. At this stage, their affection becomes visible through dedication. They invest time and energy into the relationship. They show interest in building something stable rather than keeping everything temporary. Their actions reflect commitment even if they express it quietly. The beauty of this transformation lies in how genuine it is. It does not come from pressure or obligation. It grows naturally from repeated moments of trust and understanding. The person who once feared emotional closeness now begins appreciating the warmth that comes from sharing life with someone who respects their pace. For many people observing from the outside, this change may seem gradual, but inside the avoidant heart, it represents a powerful emotional victory. It means they have challenged beliefs that once limited their ability to connect deeply. It means they have chosen courage over fear. And when someone reaches this point, something remarkable becomes clear. The distance that once caused confusion was never about indifference. It was part of a journey toward emotional safety, a process of learning how to trust again. A slow opening of a heart that once believed it needed to stay protected. Because sometimes the strongest love stories do not begin with immediate closeness. Sometimes they begin with caution, reflection, and gradual growth. And when that growth finally takes root, it reveals a connection that is steady, intentional, and deeply meaningful.